what was amazing that you could feel in the room, and nobody asked the ladies to do this, but the women started cheering.
Yes.
For all these men, cheering and clapping for these
yes.
men. It wasn't, good job, Pastor Daniel, you put the men in their place. It wasn't that at all. You could feel it was something that resonated on a deep level in every woman's heart, saying, yes, we need our men to be men.
Yes.
We need our men to be the strength, the keepers.
Yes.
We need our men, you know. And
this is the men that we need. Hello and welcome again to our podcast. This is our 7th episode, which is crazy. This is going by really fast. We're having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it means so much to us that you're joining us and that you care to listen to us talk about things as pastors. And it's been really fun.
We've gotten lots of great feedback.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of fun to, we're just talking about stuff that we love and things that we're passionate about, and to hear feedback that it's helping people, and they're sharing it with people. It's been really awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. So today we are going to be talking about kingdom men, talking about men. It's a raining men. And you just shared a message a couple weeks ago on kingdom men. Yep. He got to hold a sword. It was the coolest thing. A friend of ours has this arsenal of medieval weapons.
And this is a sword. It's like a real sword.
Legit sword.
Like that thing weighs like 25 pounds. It was heavy.
It looks like something from Excalibur. I don't even know, like some old movie.
Conan the Barbarian.
But on our friend that has this arsenal is a girl, by the way, which I think is so fun. Yeah. Love you if you're watching. But anyways, but you got to hold a sword, and that was super cool.
I didn't hold it for the whole message.
No, yeah. And
that would have been hard.
And then afterwards, some of the guys were coming up. It was a really inspiring message. You did such a good job. It was an inspiring message, and you called forth for men to rise up in true masculinity, and to lay their sword before the Lord and to walk in what God's definition of masculinity is. So it was really powerful. All the men came forward. Yeah. But after service, the guys were coming up saying, I got to hold that sword. They're taking pictures with it.
The sword kind of stole the show.
It's kind of fun, yeah. But yeah, anyway, so what's on your heart in this season about men, and what does it mean to be a kingdom man?
Well, I know we didn't have a men's ministry for a while in our church, and I kind of put it before the Lord, Lord, if we're gonna have a men's ministry, I want to have a real solid vision for it, and I just didn't have solid vision for it. And so I was praying, Lord, until you give me vision, I'm not going to just add something else to our church schedule. And I said, give me vision or send me someone that has vision for it. But I was praying about it. Yeah. And I know how important it is just to raise up godly, strong, godly men. Yeah. And so finally, I felt like God put something in front of me, and it started giving me language for what it means to be a man. And I think that's the big question. Is what does it mean to be a man? And I honestly don't think the world has an answer. Yeah. But God does. And so God started speaking to me and giving me, a biblical basis of what it looks like to be a man. Awesome. Yeah. And I remember when we were first talking about starting men's ministry, this was a few years ago. I don't know if you remember the title that I really, really wanted for the men's ministry. It was Raining Men. Oh. And it was a play on the song "It's Raining Men," but also reigning in life, REIGN. Right. You were no. But I thought it was kind of funny. But yeah. So talk to me more about what is God's definition of being a man? What does God say that's different than what the world would say? Well, I'm glad I have an answer now. Because a couple of years ago, I think, I'd been we can say all the things, a man should be doing this, a man should be doing this, and a man shouldn't be doing this. And I think that's what the message we hear from the world. We hear, don't be toxic. Yeah. As men, don't be domineering, and so which we agree with
true,
that.
Right?
We agree with that, right. And that is a good message. But men need more than don't do this, and you should be doing this. What we really need, we want to live out of revelation. Yeah, we need to live out of identity of who we are. And so it's so important to live out of revelation and not just information, because, we don't need just a checkbox of like, you should be doing this and you should not be doing this, but we need to live out of revelation.
Yeah.
And so what was put in front of me was a book, and the book was called The Men We Need. It's called The Men We Need. It's by a man named Brant Hansen. And so if this podcast resonates with you, a lot of the stuff is from the book. I'd encourage you to get it. I read it, and then I got the audiobook of it, and I gave it to some of my other men leaders. They were reading it, and we all just were really encouraged. And so it's based around Genesis 2:15. And that's really the basis of what God is saying to men is this is what it means to be a man. And Genesis 2:15 says, then God put man in the garden to cultivate it and to steward it. And it's interesting that it doesn't say, because it's referring to Adam, but it doesn't say God put Adam in the garden. It's the language used is God put man in the garden to cultivate it and to steward it. And so it's a message to men. It's like, this is why you were born. You were born to be the keepers of the garden. And so the garden is really your sphere of influence. So if you're married, that's your family, that's your wife, that's your children. It's also people at your workplace. It's people in your community. It's people at your church. That's your garden, and every man has a sphere of influence that they can impact. And so, what does a gardener do? A good gardener, he keeps predators out of the garden. Everything in the garden is safer because he's there.
Yeah.
He weeds things out that need to be weeded out. He nurtures the plants in the garden. And there's a great analogy that there's certain plants and flowers that cannot grow and thrive in the wild. They can only grow and thrive inside of a garden. And the only difference is the gardener. And so the message to us as men is there's people in our sphere of influence, and this especially applies if you're a dad, but there's people in your sphere of influence that cannot thrive unless you're stepping into your role as the keeper of the garden.
That's good. I could be wrong, but isn't a word for gardening husbandry?
Oh, yeah.
Is that a thing? Like, maybe I'm wrong. Like, I don't know if I'm
husbandry,
wrong.
what is husbandry?
I'll have to look that up later to make sure. But I'm like, oh, that's interesting. It's called husbandry. I think I could be way off on that one. But yeah, I think what the world does, and ultimately what the enemy does, and that's why the world thinks that way, is the enemy loves to speak into identity and like put false identities on people. And so I think what the lie is in the world is that like what people would say is toxic masculinity. The enemy would try to redefine and say masculinity is toxic.
It's bad.
Yeah, that there isn't a good form of masculinity. Masculinity is just bad.
Right.
And I mean, we saw that from the beginning in Genesis. The enemy is trying to rewrite Adam and Eve's identity. It's like you will be like God if you eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, when they were already formed in God's image. They were already image bearers, and it's that little small tweak that the enemy does. And can you speak to more of like what is the stigma of masculinity, like that the world tries to say, like this is what men shouldn't be, or like, can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I think what we're seeing in culture now is the message that we're receiving as men is don't be toxic, don't be toxic, and we hear the phrase toxic masculinity. And so what I think a response to that, whether it's this is the intended response or not from the people who are saying this, but the response has been like, okay, masculinity is bad, it's harmful, so I don't want to be a toxic masculine person. So what's the opposite of that? I don't think the opposite of that is actually even feminine, or although I think there's a push to feminize men,
right?
But I think the opposite of masculinity is passivity. Because the real definition of masculinity is being the keeper of the garden, is using your masculinity to create safety.
Yeah.
So that you're using, and we tell this, we have 4 boys. Mm-hmm. So we tell our boys, they'll get in fights, and especially when a bigger one is fighting with a littler one, I'm having that talk like, hey, your strength is to be used to protect. Mm-hmm. That is why God gave you strength, and and you're stronger than your little brother. Mm-hmm. And you need to use your strength to protect him. Yeah. And when you use your strength to hurt someone, you're misusing what God's given you. He's given you this strength to protect, to create safety. Mm-hmm. And so I think our masculinity is there to be the protectors, to be the guardians, to help people, to actually, there's a reason that men have fought for their nations and died for their nations and used their strength to protect freedom. Yeah. And that's what it's there for. And, we want to do that. We don't want our women to go fight wars. We want to go and use our masculinity to defend our families, to defend our freedoms, to defend our wives. Right. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. Well, and I think, we are saying, like, the toxicity that we see sometimes with masculinity is a real thing. It's a misuse of it, but that is not the definition of masculinity, not by God's standard. It's a perversion. It's something the enemy does, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, whether it's, men that are, misusing their strength to domineer, to overpower, to intimidate, in a wrong sense with the wrong people, if that makes sense. Right. To hurt women, to abuse and things like that. Right. Yeah. And, or, only seeing women as objects and, things like that. Like that is toxic. 100% is, we're not saying that's not.
No, absolutely. And that's what some men think masculinity is. Like, how many women can I conquest? Right. And if I can do that, that's masculinity. Right. And that's another abuse of masculinity.
Right. And I think that's where the world gets on the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And it's like we're on 2 different branches. The world would say, you're a man if you can conquest, 100 women, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like how many people you can sleep with, that defines masculinity. So that's one branch, right? Is that like, if I can domineer, if I can control, if I can, do all the things or whatever in a negative way, that makes you a man, and that's a lie. But the flip side to that is, that we have to bring some kind of balance by becoming more androgynous, that we're going to be passive, like you said, and ultimately control and passivity. Neither one are kingdom principles. Neither one of them are something. They're both wrong, right? And so we don't want to find ourselves on either side of that spectrum, because we also see in the world men checking out from life and, sitting like the stereotype, right, is living in mom's basement and playing video games all day. Right. But that is also toxic. Yeah. Yeah. Can you speak to some of that maybe?
Well, yeah. One of the things that really hit my heart from the book is it gives an example about someone who's like, okay, and we all know this guy, but let's say we're going to call him Jake. So Jake is, he's 23. He lives with his parents. He spends his days looking at porn and playing video games. Right. And so the question in the book is Jake hurting anybody? And, you could look at that and be like, well, no, he's not hurting anybody. Maybe he's hurting himself. But actually Jake is hurting people, because Jake he's a no-show in his role as keeper of the garden. Like, he's missing in action. Like, he's actually called to be the keeper of the garden in his community, in his home. There's a woman out there that needs Jake, who's struggling, and who needs Jake to step up, who's like Jake's wife. She's
I know a few single women out there. They're like, come on, Jake.
Right, get it together, Jake. And, the sad thing is that woman out there who needs Jake to rise up, who is actually Jake's wife, she's finding herself having to be more masculine to fight, to survive in life. Yeah. And because she doesn't have that masculine strength next to her saying, I will hold you up. I will actually, create safety around you. I'll create an environment where you can fully embrace your femininity and fully be who God made you as a woman, because I'm going to be a strength for you. Yeah. And, men, that's what women are looking for, that kind of man to fall in love with, raise kids with, that they know that this person is going to be a keeper of the garden inside the space of the marriage, inside the space of, the life that they're going to create together.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's true. What you're saying about women is that there's this temptation, really for the same thing. It's like I'm either going to step into control now, or I'm going to step into passivity, that I'm going to be passive and let a man tell me what to do in a perverted way.
Right.
That like I don't have a voice, and you know what I mean. Like men are just smarter, and I just don't have to do anything. And I think that that's also error on both sides,
yes.
and neither one of them describe femininity either. And I think that's where the enemy tries to get us to redefine, what masculinity or femininity means,
right.
apart from what God's definition would be. But 100%, I think women sometimes, our anthem, as a reaction, because it's true, there's so many like fatherless men out there, and that's a problem, the fatherlessness.
Right. Yep.
And so you see men not being initiated into manhood and maybe becoming sometimes more passive, or like some of the younger generation are telling me that, the younger men don't ask women out on a date. Like they'll kind of check you out on Instagram for a while and DM you, and,
right.
but like actually walking up to a young woman and saying, "Hey, let's go on a date," like that's becoming few and far between in the younger generations. But what's interesting is that in response to the fatherlessness, you hear this cry of women's hearts, and I get why it's there, but it's like, I don't need a man. Like, I don't need a man. I can do it on my own, and I got this, and, get away, And I get where that comes from, but at the same time, like, the enemy's trying to redefine that is strength as a woman, to not have needs, and to, like, that men are useless, and, that's the anthem, or that's the cry, that, like, I don't need a man, and yet there's a reality to,
Well, it's a reaction to masculinity misused,
right?
Like where men have hurt women, and where men have dominated women and controlled situations,
or abandoned and checked out.
Abandoned, ran away,
right?
All the things, and a reaction has been, we don't need men. Masculinity is bad, and also I think we should speak to the fact that like we need to celebrate masculinity, but we also need to celebrate femininity.
Right.
And they're both so important.
Yes.
Like we need to celebrate femininity, and we need to celebrate true masculinity.
Yeah.
But I think that's the where the world doesn't have an answer. It's like, all we're hearing is, don't be a toxic, masculine person. But we're not hearing, well, what's the answer? What do we do? Like, it's easy to deconstruct, but what's the construction? Right. And just, we've seen, the reaction to that with women, like you said, has been like, well, I don't need a man. And then you find what's sad is you find women having to be more masculine and do things that, they wouldn't necessarily have to do if they had a husband who was stepping into his role. Yeah. Or just men in their community even stepping into their role.
Yeah. And I want to be super clear, because I know there's a lot of single moms out there. Like single moms, you guys are champions. Like, we're not trying to say, oh, you're not doing a good job, or you're not enough, or, that, because there's a reality there, that single moms step up and they get it done. And, we champion that. Yeah. But we're talking about kind of, let's kind of take it a step back further of where this all happened, and what is God's original design and why. Yeah. And there is a reality, like, once you start having babies, like there is this thing of like, I need protection. Like, if I'm going to raise my children in a way, like, I'm going to need support. I'm going to need, someone around. I need someone to bring that identity piece that fathers bring, that like brings that assurance and that stability, and again, not that single moms can't do that or failing at it. But there is a reality that we need a mom and a dad. And oh my gosh, having babies is hard. And so this idea of, I don't need a man, I don't need a man, I don't need a man, there's a tension that we want to hold there, because the whole "you complete me" thing is false. Like, I need a man to complete me. I need a man to be whole. That is not true. We get our identity from Christ and Christ alone, period.
Jesus
so it's like,
completes us.
Right. So like when we have marriage, you have one whole healthy person and one whole healthy person, and they come together and the two become one. But they're not halves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But so it's like we want to hold tension with that. But at the same time, like it's okay to have a need. It's okay to, have some strength to lean on. It's okay to lean in without being utterly dependent and passive in it.
Yeah. And it's funny that we're talking about this today, but just last night in our men's group that we have, a guy that's in our men's group is just talking about his wife's pregnant and they're having their second child very soon. And she was, for a while with their first child, they were both working full time. And finally his wife was like, I am not enjoying this. Like, I want to be home with my daughter. I want to be home, like making our house a home. And he was just saying how the whole family dynamic is just so much more healthy now. Like, she's been home for a while, and he's like, man, it's so awesome. Like, we're not just both exhausted at the end of the night.
Yeah.
Like, she's refreshed when I come home, like, and he was just kind of like, we were kind of laughing. He's like, whoever told us that this model is bad.
Yeah.
Like that, I'm working hard and bringing money into the family, and our wife is at home making a house a home.
Yeah.
Nurturing our children. And again, there's so many women that can't do that, and we totally understand that.
They would like to and they can't.
They would love to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially we get it. Like, we're in Phoenix, and the cost of living is high, and so many young families can't even afford to not have them both working. But it's like, you look at that and you're like, okay, this isn't the best plan for this family,
right?
And a lot of these families are working towards one income, and then the spouse can really and it's not, there's women that have passions and all kinds of stuff. It's not to say we're against women working, they should work if they want to. But it's like, in that case of the man that we're talking about from last night, it's like his wife had enough of working.
Right.
She wanted to raise their family.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, it's so much more peaceful now.
Yeah.
Their life is so much more peaceful.
And the cost of daycare is crazy.
It's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Trying to pay someone. Now, here's what we're not saying. We're not saying all wives need to stay home, all moms need to stay home. And, I'm tired of the mom guilt thing, that you go to work and there's guilt. Why aren't you home with the kids? And then you stay home with kids, and then there's guilt. Why aren't you working on your career? Why aren't you helping your household, making money? We all have to be led by Holy Spirit in those things.
And everybody's different. There's going to be things that work for some families that don't work for others. And
I've had seasons of both. I've had seasons of completely staying home with kids, and we homeschooled for a season. And then I've had seasons where, I was, working a little bit more, or then working full time, and kids are in school. And so we've gone through lots of different seasons, but it is really nice to have that choice, at times. And sometimes it's not been so much a choice in the earlier years. But all that to say, we got to be led by Holy Spirit in those things. But the fact that you are there, to, like, if we're struggling financially, it's like, I'll go Uber, I'll go get a second job, you know what I mean? Like, that is, something that I'm really blessed with you being a kingdom man, is that you're not like looking at me going like, well, I'm going to play video games and you go earn the money. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so that's a blessing.
So when I did speak that message 2 weeks ago, we had all the men come up at the end.
Yeah.
And, and it was called to men like, hey, if you want to, really rise to the occasion of becoming the keeper of the garden in your sphere of influence, come. And all the men came.
Yeah.
But what was amazing that you could feel in the room is, and nobody asked the ladies to do this, but the women started cheering.
Yes.
For all these men, cheering and clapping for these men. And it's something like we were talking about last night. It wasn't good job, Pastor Daniel. You put the men in their place. It wasn't that at all. You could feel it was something that resonated on a deep level in every woman's heart, saying, yes, we need our men to be men.
Yes.
We need our men to be the strength, the keepers wives. We need our men, you know. And
this is the men that we need. Like this is what our hearts long for as women, or as, you know, some women that are looking for a husband. It's like, yes, there's truth happening right now. I think that was the feeling.
And I had, you know, more compliments from the women about a message entirely about men.
Right.
You know, and I did have lots of comments from men as well, but so many women were thanking me for preaching that message, because there's something deep in the feminine heart that's like, we need our men to be men. We need our men we need masculinity.
Right.
We need it, you know, in its godly given form, not in a misused way.
Yeah. So can you speak to some of the things that you challenged the men in that message? Like, what were the women applauding? Like, what were some of the things that it's like, okay, this is what it means, guys. Like, let's rise to the occasion.
Yeah, well, I think about, so I want to talk about Adam, and I want to talk about Nehemiah.
Okay.
And so Adam, one of the interesting things, if you read through Genesis chapter 3, which is when the snake comes into the garden, and it upsets everything, right?
Because you love snakes.
I hate snakes. They're the worst.
He hates.
Yeah.
And
I like
cannot
yesterday you said
enough.
You're so afraid of snakes. I was like, I'm not afraid of them. I just hate them.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay, you hate them. Like they're like, if we're walking down the street, like sometimes you go to like little street fairs or whatever, and someone will be walking down the street with like a boa constrictor around their neck, and Daniel's like, nope, we cross the street.
Yeah. No, I don't want to.
It's because you hate them. It's not because you're afraid.
Well, I hate them more than I am afraid of them, for sure.
Yeah.
But so Adam's in the garden with Eve, and the interesting thing is he was with Eve when she was tempted by Satan. He was there with her, and when you look at it closely, I think it's Genesis 3:16. It says, you know, then the serpent came and tempted Eve and gave her fruit to eat while she was with her husband. Like it's really clear, like he was there with her. And so the implication is like he's the keeper of the garden. That's the role that God gave him. Why was an enemy of God in the garden talking to his wife? And so there's something there that looks like and feels like passivity, that he had let this enemy of God come in and have this conversation with his wife, and he's right there, and he's not doing anything about it.
Was he like watching the game or something? I don't know what he'd be watching, like two lions fight or something. Actually, I don't think there was fighting back then. Yeah. And
then God's comment to him, remember when, you know, they sin, they make it the wrong choice together, and God's comment is, because when God comes to the garden, he says, where are you? And he says, Adam, where are you? And I think that's the question, you know, God's asking in our modern culture, like, men, where are you? Like, I've called you to become the keeper of the garden. I've called you to stand guard. I've called you to cultivate something. I've called you to build something, to make people feel safe around you. And really, that's one of our primary roles as husbands, is to create an environment in our home where our kids feel safe, our wife feels safe, people feel more safe when we're there, not less safe when we're there. And so many people that we know and love, and even the way I grew up, you know, when certain male presences were around, we felt less safe. And you're actually betraying your role as keeper of the garden. And so, you know, we see Adam, and you know, his wife wasn't protected in that moment. And God's like, you know, Adam, where are you? You know, and it's like this like, where are you? Why didn't you defend your wife? Why did you let this enemy in? And, you know, and we know Adam does the double blame shift. Like, God, it's this woman that you gave me. And that's another trait of like, what does it mean to be a man versus a boy? And we have little boys, so we know they hate blame. They did
it. It wasn't me.
They're quick to blame shift. Like, no, it wasn't me. And like, you know,
well, he hit me, so I had to hit him. I had no choice.
And so, you know, boys blame shift, and they don't want to receive the blame, and they don't want to own things. And what a man does is he will own it, and he'll say, yes, no, I did that. That's on me. And, you know, even a man will take the blame for his family. He'll take the blame for his wife even. He'll take the heat off of his wife and put it on himself and say, that's mine. I'll take that one. And so that's what like masculinity actually looks like, is being that keeper is like, I'll take the heat, I'll take the blame, I'll take this, I'll suffer for a mistake that my family made. I'll take the suffering from them.
Yeah.
And so,
well, I think that's something that really good leaders know. Like, because we're leaders of a church, you know, it's like the buck stops with us. So it's like if someone under us is making a mistake or is, you know, like, or didn't hear our instruction clearly or whatever, it's like we're the first to go and own it and just be like, you know what, like, you know,
on me.
Let's talk about this, but in front of the whole team, it's going to be like, man, you know, we didn't train someone right, or we didn't communicate well, and you own the things as a good leader.
Yeah, and it's not in a superficial way; it's in a real way of learning. Like, no, I've failed them as a leader. Like, I didn't cast vision enough.
Yep.
I didn't train them enough.
I didn't get buy-in enough. I didn't
protect them enough.
I didn't inspire enough, or whatever the thing is, right? And I think that that's kind of the leadership that is intended for men.
Right.
Yeah.
And a good leader doesn't look for someone to blame. A good leader looks in the mirror and says, how do I become a better leader? Like, I failed my people. How do I lead better? Like, how do I lead my people so this doesn't happen again?
Yeah.
And that's what a good, I think, husband and man does, is he'll take the heat and say, how do I be a better husband? How do I be a better man? And
it is really easy for someone to submit to leadership like that. That it's like, it's really easy to submit to a dead man is kind of what, you know what I mean? Like, you know, as men are called to live like Christ died for the church, right? Yeah. And so it's like they're called to love wives in a self-sacrificing way. It's really easy to submit to someone who's, you know, like given up their pride and their ego and, you know,
and it's not easy.
Their life down.
You know, honestly, I think it's the reason that we're alive, men, and it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. To actually learn to become like Christ, who sacrificed himself, who suffered on behalf of others, who came to serve, not to be served, and who forgave first, regardless of if the other people forgive. And you could say, obviously, this is the calling of all Christians. But I think there is a higher calling for men to do that for their community as keepers of the garden. He didn't ask Eve to be the keeper. He asked Adam to be the keeper and to protect his wife. Yeah.
Well, and would you say, you know, if that is God's design for a man to live, would you say that is actually the most fulfilling way to live?
Oh, absolutely.
Or maybe brings the most joy or feeling of like, I'm the man.
Absolutely. Like, well, and I can give an example, and this is kind of personal, but, you know, I know, I know that we like to share some personal things in our podcast, but, you know, a few weeks back, maybe a few months back, I know there was a moment where you were supposed to speak at church, and there was just a hard situation going on in our church.
It was really hitting my emotions where I'm like, okay, you know, and I try as best as I can to, you know, process things with the Lord and stay in a place of forgiveness and, you know, making sure my heart doesn't become bitter. But it was hard for me emotionally in that. And I think there was a lot of other like life stuff going on at the same time, and just like a busyness like in our family too. But anyway, you can keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, and so in that moment, you know, it would have been easy for me, you know, the easy route, and I want to get back to Nehemiah because it really ties in with what I'm about to say, but the easy route would have been like, well, Joy's slated to speak. She's got it. I've got other things.
I'm going to toughen up, and I'm going to grit down.
Yeah, well,
I got this.
Tough.
I'm going to woman up.
You know, and I could have been like, okay, well, I'm going to pray for you. I got your back. You got this. But I just knew like, hey, I need to take this off her plate. I need to speak this weekend. And it actually, I don't know how much we can say, but actually the message that, you know, that I shared that week was really a message of bringing more peace to that situation.
Yes. And it was something that we needed to talk about in the church.
Yeah.
But you came to me. You didn't like say, I'm preaching this week. Right. You know, you came to me, and I don't remember exactly how you say it, but it was something along the lines of like, would it help if I took this off your plate? Like, I would love to take this off of your plate. Would that be something that blesses your heart? And I was like, as soon as you said that, I felt the relief. And I'm just like, oh, like, and I always want to pray about things, but I'm like, right now I feel peace when you say that. And so we prayed about it, and I'm like, yes, 100%. That would be amazing for you to take this, because I don't want to ever, preach where my heart is like not in a good place. And so anyway, so you preached, and I remember, during the message, and I'm like, oh, thank you, Jesus, that he preached this message. He did such a better job than I could do in that moment talking about that thing, because I don't ever want to talk about things that is like that. My heart is hurt, and then I'm going to preach angry, like not even a little bit,
Right.
or preach hurt, or you know what I'm saying. And I just remember like you, I think I told you, I'm like, you are my hero. I'm like, you are my hero. I feel so loved. I feel so like backed up, like you have my back. And also our family got to be a lot more peaceful. I didn't have to do the message prep that week, and so I could just really focus on my time with the Lord, and bringing some peace to our household, and dinner on the table, and things like that. In a more peaceful, relaxed way.
Yeah, and that's really where I was getting at with that, is like you telling me, and saying, hey, thank you so much. You were my hero this week. That feeling is what like feeds us as men, like you were saying, like, hey, is it more fulfilling to actually do this instead of being passive or just not taking your role. And I mean, that's like the ultimate. It's like to like, as men, we do want to be the hero. We're created to be the hero.
And I think I remember telling you, like, I was really attracted to you too.
And so and I think that's part of our wiring, and I think it's part of wiring the way God wired women is to feel loved as Christ loved the church. That's what we're commanded to do in Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And which is a self-sacrificial love. And when women feel that love, they light up. Something like comes alive in them to where they're like, hey, they're actually wired to receive this kind of love. And as men, we're wired to give that kind of love. And so we're at our best when we're keepers of the garden, when we're giving that kind of love, and it brings out the best in the feminine creatures around us.
And for me to be able to lean on your strength in that moment, and you didn't approach me in this strong, hard way. Like, you approached me very softly and kindly, to where I felt like I had a soft place to fall, but I was able to lean on your strength in that moment, and it made me feel like just at ease. I don't know how to describe that. Like, I am allowed to be soft. I don't have to grit up right now. And like, there's times that God will give me the grace to grit up. There are hard moments that we go through. But in that one, that was very led by the Lord. And thank you for doing that. It was really awesome.
Yeah. And, I think that's something I've learned, because I've definitely got it wrong too. I've definitely got it wrong lots of times, and I think what I've learned is the more I can lay down my life for you, the more that it allows you to be feminine in that space and not have to be hard and not have to. And so, even I'm encouraging our men at church, just like, hey, if you're seeing your wife in a way where she's not able to be feminine, that's like an area where you need to give more of your strength to her so she can actually feel more safe. And
I think that will define what we mean by feminine. I think there'll be another time that we do one of these about kingdom women as well. Because I know we're kind of touching on things here and there, but yeah, absolutely. There's something that allows me to be a little softer, because I think men don't love when women are tough and hard and in your face, and you know what I mean? It's like, that's not helpful a lot of the time. And so when we're able to, release some burden or whatever, then, it allows me to sit back and like, okay, I'm good, and I can be at peace, and it's good.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I want to talk about Nehemiah, but we were talking about earlier that the world doesn't know how to give a definition for masculinity, but they know it when they see it. And so, like, one of the things the book talks about is like, what's the most attractive profession that women say this profession is more attractive than any other one? Do you know what the answer is?
Well, mine is pastor. That sounds weird. That's not, I mean, like just you.
one specific pastor.
One specific pastor.
And so what answer do you think women would give for that?
I'm guessing, not my, thing, but I'm guessing like firefighter.
Number one.
Yeah.
Number one is firefighter. Why? And, Brant Hansen, he does these talks and he'll show all these pictures of men, either doing something in public service, doing something to protect someone, carrying someone out of a burning building.
Risking their life.
Yeah. And they're not handsome or attractive men necessarily at all, and some of them you can't even really see the men, but he shows these pictures to an audience and he's asking the women, are these men attractive? And it's a resounding like yes.
Well, and he's coming to rescue someone that's in peril, right? So it's like that's that rescuing thing. And like for women, I mean, like we're created in the image of God, and it's like marriage and like the whole thing is a mirror of God's heart for the church. And so, that longing in a woman, like that I need rescue, which, again, it's like it's an anti-feminist message and people are trying to remove that from all the fairy tales, it's like, no, the woman rises up and she saves the day. And like, and I get it. It's like, I get annoyed sometimes with like the lady in, Indiana Jones that's screaming the entire time. It's just like, help me, save me. It's like, that's annoying,
right.
And yes, women are strong and can be strong, but that fairy tale thing is biblical, that like the church longs for rescue, and it's a parable of Jesus that comes to our rescue. But moving, once we've received Jesus, we no longer need rescue. But I think that romantic heart thing of like, oh, a firefighter is, I think it's a mirror of that.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe we should even just speak to this, but I can just speak as a man, like how I know that being married to you as my wife has made me such a better man. And it's like you have called me to the, you've called me to rise up, in so many ways, and even in men, even if your wife is doing it in a negative way, it's like you need to hear the message. If your wife's not happy with actions you're taking, you need to hear the message, hey, I'm calling you to rise up to a higher level of manhood. And it's like, so I honestly think the voice of women that God gave them, I think that women are more spiritually intuitive. And I think that women are such a gift, wives to their husbands especially, and they're a gift to their spiritual communities because they see things and they're more intuitive spiritually. And I think a wife does that for her husband. And, a wife can't tell a man how to be a man, but she knows when he's not doing it. She intuits like, hey, you are not, and if your wife, if you're married and you're getting all the things that you feel like are negative coming from your wife, it's probably because she's intuiting that you're not stepping into your role fully as keeper of the garden. Yeah. And so all that to say is I know absolutely 100% that I'm a much better man because I'm married to you as my wife, who has called me and challenged me in ways that have forced me to grow, and I shouldn't even say forced. I've decided to take the challenge, and to want to grow, to want to be a better husband, to want to be a better father. But I know without you, I wouldn't be the man I am, because you've really been able to intuit areas where I wasn't the man that I needed to be. And that helped me to go to God and be like, God, how do I become the man you've called me to be? And that's one of the reasons why this resource, that book that I found, which starts to answer the question of what it means to be a man, was so life-giving. Because if you're a man and you're struggling in your life with, and we're all going to struggling in marriage, struggling in life, and you don't really have a blueprint of like, what is God even asking me to do? Like, what is my role as a man? Yeah. And so to actually see a God-given role and see it in Scripture, and to be like, okay, I can do that. Yeah. Like, I can become better at that. I can grow in that. And I know that, intuitively, without you even being told, intuitively, you've challenged me in ways that has helped me to become a better man.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the beauty of covenant as well in marriage, that like that's why marriage is such a sanctifying place for both people, you know, because I could say the same thing about you, but it's our covenant. So it's like, you know, iron sharpens iron. It makes a terrible noise. It's like when you see iron sharpening iron, I mean, like sparks are flying, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that everything that we grow from involves like conflict and, you know, challenge and that kind of way. Sometimes it's support and encouragement or prayer or have you considered this, you know, that kind of thing. But that's the beauty of covenant, is that when you stick with it and, you know, we run into a rough patch, it's like we don't have a choice but to grow or settle. But I mean, honestly, settling is always going to go backwards.
Well, I think a lot of men do run away because they don't feel like they have what it takes. And they don't feel like they're up to the challenge.
Yeah.
And, you know, then they'll run away. And, you know, sometimes the most manly thing to do is just not run away.
Yeah.
And to be like, okay, I feel inadequate. I don't know what to do, but I'm not running away. I'm going to fight this out. And and men, you're created for the battle. You're created to fight battles. You're created to stand in your marriage when it's hard. You're created to fight and protect your community when it's hard. And, you know, coming back around to Nehemiah, so I was just processing with the Lord. I was just saying, okay, we kind of see this picture of Adam where he's not being what God asked him to be. He's not stepping into the role, and at least in that moment where he had a big fail, and it cost him dearly. It cost his family dearly.
Right.
And you see that in the next few chapters, how you know, how many negative things came out of that. And so I asked the Lord, I was like, where's a good counter to this in Scripture where we see a man being a man and really like answering that call? And immediately I heard Nehemiah. And, you know, we all know the story of Nehemiah and, you know, rebuilding the walls and everything. And I think we go right to, this is a story about rebuilding the walls and maybe building community and like, you know, all that stuff. But when the Lord showed me that story, Nehemiah was in a neighboring country, I think Persia, and he was really high up in the kingdom, and he was serving the king. So he lived in a palace, and he was well respected, serving the king. He had it really easy. He had it cushy.
Bougie, they might say.
So his life was good. His life was...
My life is good.
My life's really good.
It's fantastic.
And so he had it, you know, is as good as it gets for a Jewish person at that time. You know, he was living a good life. And when he hears that the walls of Jerusalem had been taken down, something happened in his heart, and this is his masculine heart, saying, I have to leave this cushy life. I have to leave this soft life in the kingdom to go and do something really hard, to go and fight to help my people, to like fight to rebuild these walls. And you know, you read that story and it was a fight every step of the way.
And it was a long time coming. Like the walls had been down a long time, and like something that like they've been trying to rebuild the walls for like a long time, and he was able to accomplish it very quickly. Right. Yeah.
And you know, so one of the takeaways from that story is men were not created for a cushy life. We're not created for an easy life. That's not what we're built for. We were built to fight a battle.
Wow.
We were built for something that's bigger than ourselves, and to actually engage in this battle. And so something resonates in his heart, and he's like, I can't just stay here anymore in the cushy palace. And he could have been like, hey, that's not my problem. I'm good. I'm protected. I'm in the palace. But something inside of him said, I have to leave this, and I have to go do something really hard.
Yeah.
And so as men, we're created to do something hard. But the good thing is, it's the most fulfilling thing you'll ever do. And think at the end of that story, like he's like a hero in Israel. He becomes this like legendary hero for what he did. And for him, that must have been so fulfilling that he actually fought this hard battle and actually helped bring safety back to his people. This is what we're called to do as men, is bring safety to our community.
And we're still talking about him today.
Right.
Yeah.
3,000 years later,
right.
he's like a legend.
Yeah.
And but he did something that was not easy, that was very hard.
Yeah.
And so I think this is the message I'm trying to get across to men, is like, you're built for something hard, and it's actually the most fulfilling thing you could ever do.
Right. Well, I see you. I think you see that evidenced by like your typical story of like a basketball player. You know what I mean? It's like the big dream, and like what the world says is like, once you have the fame and you've got the women and you've got the money and you've got the, you know, the houses and all the things, then you'll finally be happy and you arrived and you're the man. And we see so many people that get to that point, or they win the award or the Oscar or whatever, and it's still empty. And it's like, oh man, life is meaningless. What was all that for? And
Right.
you even see, you know, basketball players that are retired and they're living the cushy life, and they miss the battle days.
Yeah.
They miss the days of being on the court and like working out and, you know, having this hard thing to do. And I think that kind of speaks to how men are actually wired. Well, people in general are wired in that way.
Right.
But I think that there's a cool element to the Nehemiah story, because there's a moment when they're building. So you preached on it with the shovel and the sword, right? It's like we're building, and at the same time we're fending off the enemy.
Yeah.
But there's a moment where the enemy's coming and there's this onslaught or whatever, and the men are trying to build and war and all the things. And Nehemiah calls for the men's families to be brought to where they're rebuilding the wall, like on the front lines. And it's kind of like, why would you do that? Like the women and the children or whatever. And I think some of the thinking behind that is like, these men are going to fight harder and they are going to build this wall faster when they're fighting on behalf of their women and children.
Yeah.
And also the women and children are a part of this whole thing, and they're contributing and,
Right.
you know, whatever morale for the men.
Right. And
It's a really beautiful
fight
picture.
for your family.
Yeah.
You know, fight for your family. And it is, there's a lot of great language in that book of like, fight for your nation, fight for your family. And, you know, when the enemy would attack, everybody would run to that area and fight the battle together.
Yeah.
And it was like, and it specifically was like, hey, fight for your family.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, not just in that moment, but it's like, this whole thing is a fight for your family, to protect our families,
Yes.
to actually create safety, that our kids can grow up in safety.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes the lie that's put on men, and you tell me if you think this is true, I think sometimes the lie that's put on men is that your role in your family, or your role as a husband and as a father, is to go off to work and be separate, and you contribute by earning the money, you know, making the dough, and then you come and you bring the dough, and like that's kind of the interaction. That's what it means
Like,
to be
we're
a
the
man.
providers. Like,
Right.
What it means to be a man is to provide. for
Right,
your
but
family.
separate from the family. And I think that picture kind of brings it around, where it's like, no, you're meant to fight with and for your family.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that?
No, it's absolutely true. And I even had an older man come to me after the message and just said, man, I think my generation, he said, speaking of his generation, he said, I think my generation received a lie that what it meant to be a man was to be a good provider. And do you want to be a good provider? Of course you do.
Yeah.
But if that's the only definition of being a man, you miss your kids' hearts. You miss your wife's heart. When you can be a good provider and totally miss your wife's heart and not be tending to her heart, be tending to her life, be in your kids' lives and make them feel loved.
Right.
And so it's so much bigger than just being a provider.
Right. Because, I mean, you could be doing the providing thing. You could be going out working and be married and have kids, and you still have fatherless children in that scenario when the husband doesn't maybe have value for what he can bring, you know, as in love and through emotion and stuff like that. What would you say? Because I think the world tries to say, and in different ways or whatever, that men don't have emotions, that they're not emotional, they're not supposed to, don't cry, you know, like that. I think even sometimes in the church, it's like we've seen this thing put on men. It's like, we perpetuate this lie that men don't have emotions.
Oh, yeah.
Like they shouldn't have emotions, and emotions are weak, and don't ever cry. And I think that you have to hold tension with a couple different things, right? But what would you say as far as like when a husband's like, no, I make the money and I'm being the man and I don't do emotions. Like what did
right. I don't do emotions.
I don't do that.
It's like Lego Batman. I don't do ships. Like as in relationships. That's such a funny movie, but it's interesting. I think like we've probably all heard the stories of a woman who's leaving her marriage, and the man was like, doesn't understand. He's like,
he's clueless.
He's like, wait, I was a good provider.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I provided for you, and I didn't cheat on you, and and so it's like his standard of being a good man was, I paid the bills and I afforded for you to have nice things, and I didn't cheat on you.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't.
I didn't beat you.
I didn't beat you, and it's like, man, that's such a low bar.
Yeah,
and if you're not meeting your wife's emotional needs or need for connection, it's like a lot of the answers from these wives is like they're emotional. Women are such emotional creatures, and they're like, hey, I feel empty emotionally. None of those things fill my emotional love tank. Yeah, and I felt neglected, and I feel so, and I'm still certainly learning that. And I went through a period, and you obviously you were right there with me, but I went through a period years ago of even just trying to get in touch with my emotions. Yeah, and even I think as men we don't really even know what emotions we're feeling. Yeah. Until we start to train ourselves. A lot of times we're just like, well, I feel bad. There's a bad emotion. I don't know what it is, but I want this emotion gone as soon as possible. And so then we can medicate that with various things, you name it, of what do I need to do to make this emotion go away? And a breakthrough for me was to actually start to identify the emotions I was feeling. And for us, it helped with the connection wheel. Yeah. To start to identify, when we started doing that, it helped me to identify, when I was feeling emotion, I'm like, okay, what is this? Oh, this is actually anger, and I'm angry because of this. Or, oh, I'm sad. I'm sad because of that conversation I had. And now you have a target, okay, how do I take this to the Lord? Instead of my old go-to was I feel bad, don't want to feel bad. I'm just going to work harder, get busy, whatever. Fill in the blank with something that replaces this emotion. Instead of what we need to do as men is actually allow ourselves to feel the emotion, figure out what the emotion is, and then we can actually address that specific emotion. Yeah. Okay, Lord, I'm angry. Can I process this with you? And of course, the Lord wants to process that with us. And that's where I started to have huge breakthroughs and actually not reject my emotions. Yeah. And if you actually don't reject your emotions and start to feel them, then you can become more sympathetic to people around you that are having emotions. And you see so many people, and women can be like this too, but I think it's more so with men, that they're uncomfortable with emotion, period. And when you see that, you can know immediately that they're uncomfortable with their own emotions. Right. That's why they're uncomfortable with other people's emotions. They don't do emotions. They're like Lego Batman, except they don't do emotions. And so, the more I've grown in that, the more it's helped me to, I think, connect with you emotionally. Yeah. And connect with our kids. Yeah, and I just know, obviously, I know now that it's such a huge need that you have, and that, being a good provider is not what I'm called to do. It's not the scope of what I'm called to do as a man. It's a one small part of it. Yeah, and your ability to connect emotionally with people, with our kids, in a masculine way, right? It gives you the ability to impart wisdom, to impart the things so that, the kids aren't growing up fatherless, with a man that's just kind of checked out other than, here's my paycheck. But I think that there's a bravery in men pursuing that, that there's a battle there that the enemy wages against men. Because I think that's a lie that the enemy's put on men, is that you're not allowed to have emotions or that men aren't emotional. I mean, we all need that connection. It might look different, and that's okay. Well, I think you can speak to it, help us as men, because, men that are listening, what are you looking for for in a man emotionally. And like, you know, because I think, again, the lie is like, well, I'm a man, I can't show emotion.
Right.
But like what actually fills your love tank or brings comfort or brings safety
Right.
is when regarding to emotions.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, I think of Jesus, and Jesus is very empathetic. And so you see him like when Lazarus, he raises Lazarus, you know, but prior to that, all the people are weeping. They're coming up to Jesus. Like, if you would have been here, he wouldn't have died, you know, and Jesus knows he's about to resurrect Lazarus.
Right.
Like, he's not like, you know.
You're going to see him in like 5 minutes. Just
yeah,
relax.
it's just like, watch me. You guys, just watch this, you know. He doesn't do that. It says Jesus wept.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is he weeping? And I know, like, I've heard religious messages that say he's weeping because they have no faith. And I'm like,
no.
I just don't see any connection there in the heart of God behind that. But I feel like he's weeping because he's stepping into the emotion of what's happening. It's like, wow, this is sad.
People he
These people
cared
are
about
grieving.
are grieving, and they're hurting, and they're sad. And God will meet us where we're at.
Right. And he loved Lazarus, you know. And so even though he knows what's about to happen, it says in the Psalms that in all of our afflictions, he was afflicted. So God feels our pain. Jesus felt the pain of that moment, even though he knows it's going to be okay. I mean, at any given moment, God knows everything's going to be okay. There's no reason to cry.
One of the deepest pains, obviously, that anyone could experience is a loss of a loved one. Yeah. And so it's someone he loved as well. Yeah. And so he is feeling their pain. Right. And he's showing that he has his own pain over it.
Yeah. So he's showing emotion in that. And the only way to empathize with somebody is for you to be in touch with your own heart. Because, and I think that's part of the reason that people don't know how to react around people that are in grief, for example. Like, someone's loved one has passed away, and sometimes, like, people will avoid them. And, you know, people that are in grief have experienced that, where it's just like, where is everybody? Or maybe after the funeral's over, it's like everybody just kind of disappears, or they don't know what to say, or they, you know, they do the scripture slapping of like, hey, buck up, or, you know, whatever. But what happens is, like, to empathize with someone, you have to put yourself in their shoes. And I think people don't want to go there. I don't want to imagine my loved one dying and what I would feel like. That's scary. Yeah. And so they kind of shut that down, and they don't want to feel that. Well, then you can't empathize with someone else if you're shutting down your own heart in that way.
Thank you for joining us today for part 1 of our podcast on Kingdom Men. It was so long that we split it into 2 videos, and the next video is going to come out next week.
And don't miss it, because we had a lot of fun, and I think that there's a lot of really great things in it. So be looking out for that next part.
Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. And in the meantime, you can watch this video right here. Bye-bye. We'll see you in the next one.